And we are currently live. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight I'm joined by at Second Prince, David. David, thank you for joining me and enlightening me to the world of comic book retail.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, I really appreciate it because there is I've talked to you previously on other streams where we've been guests, and you seem like a really cool dude to talk to. You love what you do. You always sharing comics and other weird things like ads from the back of comics like you're reading and talking about books nobody else talks about. Who talks about West Coast Avengers except for you?
That came about because I got they announced the West Coast Avengers, the new book, and they showed the preview art, and I was like, man, this is just like another one of those books that Marvel puts out that'll be put out, and it'll probably get a trade or two. It'll be 6 or 12 issues or whatever they do, and then it'll go away. And maybe it's just a trademark thing, or maybe it's just someone really did have a good pitch. I don't know. The cover just doesn't look great. And I'm like thinking back about, those old West Coast Avengers books that I liked when I was younger. And I'm reading them and I'm like, now I'm starting to read them. And like, I'm getting all these ideas of stories I want to tell. And I'm like, man, I would have this story where like Rick Jones came back because he's currently dead. And he's like seeking revenge on all these characters because he never quite was the superhero,
No.
And I pitched it to my friends, and they're like, "Oh, that's really good." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, let's get this book made instead."
Well, it's so funny you mention that because like you look at all these Marvel movies and they've been doing, they have what 20 movies at this point or something like that. It's like for a decade they've been going on.
Yeah.
Rick Jones is the linchpin of the Marvel universe, but you wouldn't know it by watching the movies.
No.
Kree Skull War, he was Captain Marvel for a while with Genesville. He was Hulk's sidekick, Captain America. He was Bucky for a bit. He was Captain America's sidekick for a while.
Yes, he was.
He's the one that's responsible for the Avengers getting together because him and his ham radio buddies, calling up.
They were like the Teenage Brigade or something weird, and they got the Avengers basically together, right? Like they called all those people, right?
And it could have been. I mean, you could have done it correctly. So that's the thing about the Incredible Hulk from the cinematic. He's just like the TV show Hulk. I never liked that because the origin, because that show aired before I was born. It was canceled before I was born, I believe. Yeah. But that show, it's like David Bruce Banner was experimenting with. So this dick is just putting gamma rays in his brain and see what happens. It's like. He wasn't where Bruce Banner, he was building the gamma bomb, and then he's like, oh, crap, there's a kid out there. I got to go save him so he doesn't die. So in the act of trying to save Rick Jones, he turns into the Hulk. And that's why I like the Eric Bana Hulk movie, because in there, that machine was supposed to close, but it doesn't close, and there's a guy in there and they're trapped, so he takes the gamma. He basically falls on the grenade, as it were, like for the gamma grenade, and takes that blast. And in doing so, he's the one, he saves the not quite Rick Jones, but I guess it's supposed to be Rick Jones' surrogate in the movie, like the little lab assistant, saves him from getting radiated. But all the experiments his dad did is that's why I actually like that movie. It's not the best movie in the world, but honestly, I prefer that over any of the Nolan movies, Nolan Batman movies.
Oh wow!
And then it's like comic book panel stuff I could do without, but I like how it's kind of operatic. But yeah, you're right. Like the Rick Jones, people have forgotten about him. He's dead, and like bringing him back is he's almost like a circuit breaker too. He's like the linchpin circuit breaker of the Marvel universe in the comics. And
he's been everything. Like he's been, like you said, he was Cap's sidekick. He was like a Bucky. He was Hulk's best friend. He was Captain Marvel. He was the Abomination.
What?
So
well, I missed this one. When was this?
So like when they did Red Hulk, he went through some kind of transformation or something because they killed the original Abomination, and he became Abomination, or they called him A-Bomb. And so then he got like depowered at one point again. Like the dude's been through everything. He was a musician, and then he had like a failed musician career. Like he was everything. So I think like my motivation for him would be to come back. Somehow he'd be back from the dead, or didn't really die, or whatever you could do. And he knows all these heroes. He knows all of them. He knows all the Avengers at least, and he knows all their weaknesses. And you know, obviously, it wouldn't have been revealed that he's the villain, the main villain. But I wanted to do that. Like, so I was reading those old stories and like those old West Coast Avengers. There's so many stories that you could tell from that book. Like, and that's what I feel like some of the today's writers, they don't read the actual back issues because I feel like the older writers left stories to be told. Like there's stuff you could build upon. You just got to read those old issues and you'll get ideas. And I think that's a little bit lacking with the continuity and building on those older stories, at least at Marvel, maybe a little at DC, but definitely what I've seen at Marvel.
I agree because I was reading some of the old What If books. Like there was one, like like there's a thing I have a big problem with the comic book covers today being the cover artist is not doing the interior work. Even though like this cover in particular, it was a Bill Sienkiewicz cover for a What If story with Conan. What if Conan was trapped in the 21st century? He's got this revolver. He's pointing at the camera and everything. He's got the Conan helmet on and stuff. And they leave the thread open at the end, like Captain America and Conan have a battle, and Captain America's got a shield, but that's it. He doesn't use pistols or blade or anything like that. And Conan just like he nearly takes Captain America's arm off, and like Captain America, but he respects Captain America. And Conan runs off, and he like ends up in some seedy motel, and like the story. It kind of ends on it has an ending, but it's kind of like it leaves the threads open for a potential other what if Conan joined the Avengers, because like Captain America's like, if you need help, call me. I will basically treating him like he was an addict or something, like you're a violence addict. We can actually put you to use. And I'm thinking like Conan, Captain America. He always had the Cap's quirky quartet or whatever. Like with Hawkeye, like a bunch of weirdos. You had Hawkeye, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and what was it? Vision? Not Vision. Who was the other one?
There was just those four when they did it was just those four, and then like the originals guys started to come back, but like when the original Thor and Hulk and those guys left, it was just Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye. That was the Avengers for a number of issues.
That's what's so weird about it. It's like a lot of people, like they don't know their comics history, and like that's what I tell people. If you're like, oh, there's no good comics coming out, but you go to a comic shop, I'm like, I don't think there's any shop out there that would be upset if somebody went in and like they bypassed the new releases, but went straight to the back issue bins and picked through a bunch of stuff and came to the counter. It's like
back issues are awesome. Like I always say, it's like so my shop is First Print Comics in Rochester, New York. If people want to check that out, if you're in Rochester or you want to check out eBay store or whatever.
I put the eBay store link in the description of the video, so if anybody's interested, go there. There's some really good deals.
Cool. So like everything that's listed there isn't everything that I have in the shop, and there's stuff that I'm still going through. But I've been like pricing out, back issues and stuff, and like some of my stuff I got, they're like $2 a piece, $1 a piece. I have dollar bins, like they're good reading stuff. I like all the old West Coast Avengers, the Avengers stuff. I just priced out a whole bunch of SpiderMan. But I'm looking at these books, and a lot of times that's what I'll do is I'll be like pricing stuff out and be like, you know what, I haven't read this in a while, or I don't think I ever read this, to be honest with you. And I read them, and I'm like, wow, these are great. So yeah, if you're down on the new stuff and you're like, man, Marvel's not producing anything good, go check out your store's back issue bins and see what they got, because there's great stuff. There's great stuff from any era. Some of my favorite eras are, the 70s and the 80s. I like a lot of the 90s stuff. But, the early 2000s, from like 2000 to 2009, there was some really great stories too.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there's a lot of books that people missed out on. Like, it's weird to look at now because the guy's art changed so much. But Mike Deodato Jr. had a 4-issue run with Warren Ellis on Thor.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been Journey of Mystery at the time, like Journey of Mystery featuring Thor or something like that. But it dealt with Yggdrasil, the World Tree and everything. It's this where Thor had that weird costume. It wasn't like it's like, yeah, we're 90s, man.
He just had like blue pants, and he was like depowered, wasn't he?
I
Like,
think so. I think he didn't have all his powers. It was weird. It was hard to follow because
yeah.
it was Warren Ellis. I mean, Warren Ellis in 90s Warren Ellis is
Mhm.
even modern Warren Ellis to that degree. It's can be hard to follow at times. It's like, oh, what? Huh? You know, but
Mhm.
like even that stuff, like stuff that like I missed out upon. Like I go through like any comic shop worth their salt should have a back issue, but I know some of them they sacrifice space for D&D and Magic the Gathering and stuff like that, which is a shame. Which I find. I was at a shop in New Jersey and I go in there. I'm like I look it up online. I was like, well, I'm in the area. It's like 15 minutes away, so I go over there and half the shop is nothing but gaming space for like Magic the Gathering and D&D,
Mhm.
and then the like the other quarter of it is for material like the boxes and gaming and all that stuff, the
Mhm.
role playing games, and then you have some comics, some trades, like all like kind of like packed into a comic ghetto, and then you have the counter, and then behind the counter you have all the CGC. Like I'll never buy a CGC book unless it was like on clearance, like coming like $1 CGC book or something. Because like
Mhm.
I want to actually read the books. I'm not a collector. I do have books. I don't collect them to sell. I collect for value. I collect to read, or I have them to
Mhm.
read. I like to read as like a library. Like I treat my stuff. Oh, I want to look at Rising Stars, the Compendium edition. I'll look through that, or oh, here's my copy of Batman Hush or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of shops, like there are so many books, like you said, like there are many eras, especially the '70s, like like there was Captain America books back then. Then you had the Superman stuff. You had Batman, killing it in the '70s as well. But you had stuff like Power Man and Iron Fist coming out of the kung fu exploitation, the black exploitation, and all that stuff. And it was fun, really
Mhm.
fun, action oriented books, and that's why like it's so jarring to see the way they treat these characters and other mediums, and also currently, like they defanged Luke Cage. Luke Cage used to be like this really cool character, and I was never a fan of the way Bendis, because my comic shop actually had a lot of those old Power Man books, and I picked them
Mhm.
up. I'm like, because they were like they're cheap. Like, who cares about Power Man? Because these books have never been that expensive, not to my knowledge, not to, especially at the shop I was going to at
No,
the time.
like, you got like, there's like a first appearance of this guy or that guy, and then, I guess since, the Netflix show comes on, so you get like, Diamondback and Cottonmouth and all those people. But like, yeah, overall, those books are not, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
it's
saying?
exactly. It's like one of the ones, like the first ones I picked up. It had Luke Cage and Iron Fist fighting,
Mhm.
and they go like a Iron. There's a misunderstanding, like how a lot of those hero team ups start. There's a
Yeah,
misunderstanding,
exactly.
and Luke Cage is like, oh, what you gonna do? You kick your little yellow booties and stuff like that. And Iron Fist powers up and he busts the support beams for a building and collapses a building on top of Luke Cage. I was like, all right, you want, and then like of course Luke Cage gets out of that, but
Right.
and like then there was like the next issue I picked up, it was like big gap between issues because I'm at mercy of whatever the shop had in the back issue bins,
Uh-huh.
and it was Luke Cage and Iron Fist are like, they are spokesmen for like an auto company. They're like working an auto show. It's like, look what they can do, and it's like he can cut through this. Oh, he can lift this up, and they're like, what are we doing here? And it's great. It's fun comics, and like you don't see this stuff now.
Well, you get like, I don't know, there's some kind of like charm to some of the cheesy stuff. Like I read like they used to have Marvel Masterworks, like the trade paperbacks of like Fantastic Four, and now they're doing like Marvel Epic collections. They're gonna be like their reprint things. But I've read like the first 100 issues of Fantastic Four, and there's definitely really, really cheesy parts of the book and really cheesy humor. But there's like a certain charm to it, and I love it. I love this stuff. And you're right, like it's weird because I think maybe because we're getting a little bit older, or we're the same age as a lot of the writers that are working in the industry today. It's weird to see like, hey man, why do I know more about this stuff than you do? Like you're a writer for this book. Like, you should know, you should be an expert on this character and the background of this character. I mean, you don't have to read every back issue. It's some of these characters would be impossible to do, but you know, just treat them with some respect. And I know you want to have your own ideas and all that stuff, but man, when you see some characters just like act completely like you would never think they would, you kind of go, well, what did you read? What was your influence? You know, how did you get your inspiration? Or did you see something completely different on TV and decided, hey, this is what I want to do with Nightcrawler today?
Exactly. That's one of those problems with these characters. But Comic Rust in the chat asked, I was have you two have read in the miniseries Luke Cage by Genndy Tartakovsky. Have you read that one? The Luke Cage, the one they shelved for like a decade.
Yeah, no, I never read that. I didn't read that. I had it in the store and I made sets of it, and it sold very well for me. But no, I didn't read it at all.
I actually picked it up because I remember hearing about it for years. Because there was like one of those books, like there's that the unpublished Swamp Thing, where Swamp Thing travels back in time, ends up as the cross that Jesus was crucified on, and talks to Jesus while he's on the cross, which now seems so tame, compared to like, so many books that are out. But I guess
Right.
I'd actually, but the art's finished, the book's done, but they never published it. And there's a lot of other books like that. But I actually read it, and it's less Shaft, more like Dolomite. Like, bitch, are you for real? What has he had? It's like if Rudy Ray Moore played Luke Cage instead of Shaft. Like, you got smooth, suave, badass. Then you got badass, but it's like so cheesy and almost, and it's intentionally done almost kind of weird bad. That's how it felt to me. It felt more like Dolomite, less like Shaft. But it was a really fun read. I recommend if you get comes back into the shop, I recommend like giving it a shot because it was a quick read. It was really well done, the action and everything, because Tartakovsky being in animation, so like some of those guys are really good at it. I heard somebody complain it was like too exaggerated, like too cartoony, but what do you expect? I mean, it's like that's the style, that's the way he draws. It's like I'd rather have that than somebody trying to be like too realistic, like somebody trying to pull like a Brian Hitch or John Casty, where they're focusing on all the wrong details. It's like, yes, I see you put all the detail into the fish scale armor, but this is boring. It's putting me to sleep.
That project was announced. That was announced like years and years ago, right? Wasn't it? And they never did anything. I remember hearing about it, and then they never did anything.
Yeah,
until like, what was it, about a year ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, it's like 2 years ago. Actually, the Tartakovsky started on it. This is like he did it back in like 2005, 2006, apparently, and did all the art, and it just sat editorial. It's like there's movies like that. It'll just sit on shelves, but for some reason, I don't know if he pissed the wrong person off or some editor was keeping it suppressed. I don't know what the deal was. Like, nobody's, like, there's a lot of people talk about certain things, but they won't talk about others.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I'm curious why it sat on the shelf. It wasn't like it was bad or anything. Like the same thing with I believe there's a finished Killraven series by Kirkman and Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess because Rob, pissed off Marvel or something, and so they're just going to shelve that. And Kirkman's like, I'm not coming back to your company, and because he's making all that Walking Dead money. So
yeah,
and also that Transformers money.
That would be an interesting story to see, though.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I'm not the biggest like Kirkman fan. I've tried giving Oblivion Song book a shot. It just didn't click with me. There's like nothing about it that I've seen like him do a lot of these like #1 books and everything. It just seems like he's like throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks. Like, here's a kid's book, here's this book, here's that book. At least he's trying, but just nothing that, I don't know how well is that selling well in your shop. Oblivion Song?
Yeah. He's I was talking about it on the other another stream before, but like he's a big seller. Like, his Walking Dead is great. And they're doing like 2 different covers too. So there's like an A and a B, just like they do with DC. And I saw Walking Dead still sells really great. And what are we at? Like 180 or something? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's something really
But
crazy.
it's selling, and it's selling like naturally like 71,000 copies or something. I think the last time I looked at it on the list, it's beating, when you're out selling books like, Captain America and like, X-Men Gold or whatever, you're doing pretty good. So I think he's great. Like, I don't like Walking Dead. I don't get the appeal of it at all, but I love that the book sells great, and Oblivion Song does great, and Invincible was my favorite series that he wrote, and he did that with, well, mostly Ryan Otley. So that was one of my favorites, and they just ended that a couple months ago at 144. That was my favorite Kirkman book.
Well, I was reading reading Invincible because it was already out by the time I heard about it, and I picked up those the equivalent. I forgot what they were called, but the hard covers are like 12 issues each or whatever. Like
Yeah.
forgot what I want to say essential, but I don't think it really was essential. But like the epic editions, like Epic Invincible or whatever it's called. And I was reading, I was enjoying it. I got to around like issue 70 something, and it started to kind of wane. I think that's why a lot of books, when they do like 60 issue run, so they Preacher, The Boys, Sandman, that was like 75, but like a lot of books they'll do like about 50, between 50 and like 75 issues.
Mm-hmm.
I think they can, because you tell a really big story without like, to me it got kind of burned out. Like, and the biggest problem I had with that book, and I was enjoying it. It's like, but when any book does like ultra violence, like bones sticking out, like people's like if you go that like that's R violence. I mean, in comic book form, that's R rated. At
Mm-hmm.
that point, full language, full nudity. I'm not saying like full frontal, but like breasts, asses, stuff like that. Like if you're gonna go and show bones sticking, like somebody getting punched and like their bones sticking out through their arm and teeth flying out, like really brutal, horrible stuff. You know what? Throw a tit in there, no big deal. Hey, there's a guy's ass is hanging out. Okay, whatever. Throw something in there. If you're gonna go with R, earn that R. That's the way I see it. It's like you go PG or R. No PG-13. You either PG or R.
Well, like, it's kind of funny because, I mean, it is career owned, so he could do whatever. He could be wholesome for 100 issues, and then all of a sudden have an issue where you do have full nudity, right? Because it is creator owned. But like, that book had like people getting their heads smashed like by someone else's bare hands, and like eyeballs popping out, and like guts and intestines. It was brutal. It was very, very gory.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't know. Like with your shop, if a book is like, say, I know recently. What is it called? This new Miller. It was the Miller Coypel book that they came out. What was it called?
The Magic Order.
The Magic Order. Apparently, there's like a full frontal nudity in that.
Mm-hmm.
For stuff like books like that, do you bag and board them and seal it up? Do you like have like one display that's bagged and boarded and like you have to keep it behind the counter? Like how do you? Because I know apparently in California, you have to have, there's adults only section for like, which California is another planet. Who cares? Let it fall into the ocean. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't get like the Magic Order. It just kind of went to the floor. I don't get a ton of kids that do come into the shop, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do, I keep an eye on them, or I go, hey, mom and dad, that's not really a book for them. So there's that. There was kind of things that like I Hate Fairyland had like B covers that was like fuck Fairyland, it said. So like a lot, I think I would bag and board those and kind of block that part out. And I used to have like Savage Dragon to the floor. I don't put Savage Dragon on my floor anymore. I can't put it on the floor. I can't just.
It's pornography.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's way too much. It's way too vulgar. It's not a comic. So I have I have two guys that get that book, but I try, like, I think I order 2 or 3 copies, but I don't put it to the floor. Like, I can't. It's too much for anybody. I think it's weird. It's strange. There,
if you put it to the floor, you'd have to worry about maybe somebody like, okay, I'll give it a shot, flip through it or something, and be so disgusted, rip it up right there.
yeah, it's bad.
Oh,
Like I flip through some of those issues and I'm like, I don't understand why this is entertainment. I don't get it. Like it's very, very strange. And I'm not like a prude or anything. Like it's
I
just
see.
gross.
I picked up books like I'm a big fan of the Los Brothers Hernandez. Jaime Hernandez, Gilberto Hernandez. The creators of Love and Rockets. And one of the books, like I had picked up it was an eBay set, lot of, it was like some Love and Rockets books. It was Love and Rockets, one of the Fantagraphics reprints, like one I didn't have. It was like on cheap, but they also had a book in there called Birdland, and it was a Gilberto Hernandez book. And I'm like, I picked this up too. I should have done my research because Birdland was one of those Eros Comics books, which is, they're like the porn comics, and it's like,
Oh,
oh
okay.
god. But like one of the funny ones, one of the books in there on the back of it is like all the like, oh, these are books from Eros, and one of them is called Ironwood by Bill Willingham. And I'm like, Fable's creator and everything like that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
he's done some strange stuff back in the 80s and 90s. But it was actually for what it had in it, like, okay, yes, it was not tame at all, but it was less vulgar than Savage Dragon. That's what's crazy about it. This is from the Eros comics porn and da, 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 da. It was less vulgar than Savage Dragon.
I
That
can't
one
even like
issue of Savage Dragon
describe.
looked.
I can't even describe some of the scenes of like Savage Dragon. Like it's that bad. Like I'm like, what is going on? What goes through your mind? Like I don't understand. But yeah, it's crazy.
It's one of those. Are there any books that when, like, say, somebody like where of course, like a customer wants to, like add this to their pull list or a special order an item,
Mhm.
but have you ever had like a revulsion, like, oh god, but their money's good? It's like,
No, no, no. Like I said, I have people that order Savage Dragon, and I get it for them. I don't understand it. Like, it's like anything. Like, there's just like obviously, like when you go through the order form, there's like 1,000 comic books, different comic books you could order in a month. There's no way I read all of them and flip through all of them. I just don't. Like, I don't. Like, I flip through a lot of them and I count all the books that come in and stuff, but to sit down and actually read them and pay attention to everything, and all the creators and all that I can't. It's almost impossible. So like, yeah, no, I don't care. What book you want. If you want it and I can get it, I'll get it for you. And like it's not a big deal. I don't have a problem with any of doing that for anybody.
yeah, I think there's some people that actually have issues with that. Like me, it's like, you're running a business. I mean, if there's something that would be bad for business, I can understand not, but
Yeah,
it's, but there are certain people like ideology, it trumps any kind of business,
yeah.
and that's and that's right there. It's like, like there's a lot of people that they say they say they love comics, but I think they love to fight about comics more than they actually love the comics themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, I don't run a shop, and I actually was going to buy a shop. I was actually buying, it was going to be one of three. These two brothers, they're going to, we're going to be like own a third of the shop, buy into the
Hmm.
shop. So I'm like, guys, do you have I want to look at the books first. I'm not going to just, and actually looked at the books, looked at like all the previous owners, the current owners at the shop. Like if we were going to buy in, they would have been the previous owners, but the current owners of the shop did not have. They had a verbal arrangement for the lease of the shop itself. The HVAC unit was busted. The plumbing was messed up. There was leaks in the roof. So the HVAC unit, the way they had the shelves set up, because it's just the way with the vents coming down, it would warp comics. There was electrical issues. It was like the firehouse from Ghostbusters. It was like shot, and I'm like, I ain't
Hmm.
buying into this.
No.
And the guy that was running it currently, because the owner, the owner was, he used to be a major part of it, but then he started went back to teaching at one of the local community colleges,
Hmm.
schools around, and he let another person run day-to-day operations, and the guy run day-to-day operations would turn in comics, his own private collection, and then pay himself uh, out of the till, out of
Hmm.
the. So I was like, oh, so basically, like taking the petty cash, taking like kick, like you know, scrounging money from the store. I'm like, oh, okay, I see how it is. Yeah, I don't want nothing to do with this this shop, so I backed out, and then of course they had to back out too because they needed another partner, and nobody wanted to step up because
Right.
anybody half a brain. So at least I know I'm somewhat savvy. I didn't buy a lemon of a shop, but like these people like, oh, comic shops are dead. It's like dead. It's like a foregone conclusion, and it bothers me because there's like yeah, you can buy stuff online. Like people think like they're okay with the idea of just going to a online shop or a crowdfunding site, like buy one comic and 6 months later, then another campaign comes up from that creator, or a year, or whenever it takes to
Uh-huh.
get another book out. I like going to a shop and a shop owner, maybe they're playing, they got some music on or something, and they're talking, with a customer, go in there, like, hey, like they actually care about what they're doing.
Right.
I like that. I like that interaction. I also like to, come back to that shop or like, hey, if this book comes in, if maybe here's my name, email address, phone number, whatever. If this book comes in, could you let me know about it? It's like, yeah, we'll keep it, like we can't hold it for too long if it comes in, but we'll let you know as soon as it comes in, kind of thing. And
Hmm.
that's cool. You can have that happen because there's sometimes books that you just can't get your hands on. Like, not they're really expensive, but they're just hard to come by or something. Yeah, like it just gives a sense of community
Hmm.
and just a bunch of people that online. It's a community of sorts, but it's not the same. It's like the idea. It's the print versus digital. It's two different crowds. It's like digital's going to be rule of the day. I'm like, you can't own that. You might own the PDF, but you can't hold that in your hand. You can't feel the paper. You can't how it's supposed to feel. Not that sticky mess that Marvel and Image and DC use. Like, I'm all for the newsprint thing. When I heard the whole alternative thing last year, I was like, let's see if this is real, because I'm like, everybody talks about how newsprint costs so much, which is insane. But if it does, then they're running into a deficit. They got some deep coffers
I don't
to be.
even understand like with Marvel and like I don't mind DC's paper or anything like that. I really don't, and their covers are fine with me, because I don't, I can hold it in my hand and not actually have like the ink smudge. But
Yep.
Marvel, it just seems like they use way, way, way too much ink for that type of paper. And it's like I remember like back in the 90s, remember they had like deluxe editions? They had like newsstand and like a deluxe edition or whatever. Like what was wrong with all that paper? Like I don't understand. The books were put together. Like now I get comics and they staple the middle and the paper's so thin they staple it and the page that the middle page rips like
Yeah.
right out of the comic, and I'm like, man, you're charging $4 or $5 and $6 a comic, and your quality of paper is terrible, and you staple the hell out of it. You there's so much ink, and then you farm it out to like 3 different printers, and if I get books from this printer, it's a different type of paper than this one. I don't even understand what you're doing. You're Marvel.
Exactly. That's what's so weird about it. I know a lot of times that they'll sign contracts and certain stuff. I mean, there's stuff goes behind the scenes that nobody talks about, and it's like where that's how people can get screwed. Like you don't talk about stuff, and as a shop, you're at the mercy of Marvel. You're at the mercy of Diamond. You're at the mercy of tyrants. You got these tyrants that nobody could do anything to. Uh, you know, and they care about their bottom line, and that's it. They don't fan relations, customers. Like this is very clear. Like I mean, and DC as well. DC does stuff and it very dumb. But like what you're saying with the way the print stuff, like everything's done so cheaply today, and everybody talks about like that glossy paper. It's so disgusting to touch. Like you could have like you'd have to have the gloved hands to properly handle those books because the ink, the tiniest bit of moisture, the tiniest bit of oil, like natural body oils. Not like you just handled a slice like pizza and then you're
Right. It's
messing
just my hand. Like, yeah,
exactly.
it's right regular hand. And like it'll be like, oh, I got an ink smudge on the cover. What the heck? Or
Yeah, I know.
what happens is like the diamond boxes. So you like they put the diamond boxes in, and they'll be put like a piece of cardboard on top of the box. So you open the box, and you got the overbox, and so you open the two individual boxes, and there's that thin piece of cardboard. You open it up, and the two top comics have like ink transference, or like they're just you're like, oh well, the two top comics are damaged. I can't sell those. Like the covers are all spotty. Like what
God.
the heck?
It's stuff like that is uncalled for. Like there is
Right.
the cheapness of this stuff, and then I honestly think that those, that news, because everybody's like newsprint costs too much. Like there was like Eric Larson going like, "Oh, newsprint costs too much, and you can't use proper, modern coloring techniques." Here's the thing: a lot of modern coloring stinks. I know that people don't want to hear that, but there's a lot of people that they overcolor things. They put too much emphasis on highlights and weird coloring.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of flat coloring. I like the old school comic coloring. If it worked for Jim Lee, if it worked for R. Adams, if it worked for Barry Windsor Smith, if it worked for John Buscema and the rest of these people, these amazing artists, then it can work for modern art. And if you're like, well, these colorists, like I know colorists that they would do an amazing job. Elizabeth Brightweiser, Lisa Benaventura. I know these people; they're really good colorists, and they do their gigs well. But there are people out there that they're not that great, and they overdo it. So, and then like, oh, so we're going to sacrifice quality. I'd rather have newsprint with those kind of the old style comics, like what Alterna does, and that's actually made in America, printed in America. Like how many things are made in America these days? Like I love America, I love my country, and I love the fact that stuff printed in here, not some Canadian. Some socialist Canadian comics coming across our border with split middles because the way the machine stapled it, and it just splits the paper. So you open up the book, and here comes the interior page. That the center page starts flopping out from the top because of the staple. And I've had that happen. That happened to me in the Cable book, Cable 154, 153. I picked it up from the shop. I was like, what in the world? But I should have looked through it. I should, I pointed it out to the shop. But what can you do? I mean, like you can't go. You can go through every single book and like hold it upside down, make sure stuff don't fall out like that.
Yeah, like my Amazing Spider-Man 800s. Now I got a lot of them. People were interested in the end of that run, especially the 800th issue. So I got a lot more than I normally get, and I was pulling them out right out of the boxes when UPS delivered, and I'm like looking at them, and I'm like something's wrong with these books. So I had like 20 or 25 copies missing the top staple of the book. They just didn't staple. And I was like, oh, look at that.
And that's that gaffe, those mistakes. I mean, it doesn't really instill customers, which is you and your customers. So people think like, oh, what do you think customers? They forget the fact that comic shops are the biggest customers. You're buying these books, and you hope to sell through. You hope to go ahead and get rid of everything, and then like call, okay, we're sold out, that kind of thing. Like we're completely sold out of that book. That's good. That's a good feeling to not have extra stock on the shelves, because I mean, I've seen it happen in my own shop. Like they'll order heavy on a book and it just not sell. And but it happens. I mean, you expect things to sell when they don't.
Well, like I really rely real heavily on my pull bags and everybody, but like pre-orders. But sometimes people just don't want to tell you that or they don't know. Hey, a book is coming out in 2 months. Put it on my pull bag. A lot of times they get like, oh, hey, when's this book coming out? And I'm like, tomorrow. Oh, can you put that in my pull bag? And I'm like, if I have enough, I don't know. Like, I'll try to take care of you. But there was books like the Marvel, like the Generations. And I was like, people are going to probably want this. Nobody's adding it. Nobody wants it on their pull bag. I'm like, but people are probably going to want this. This is supposed to be like a big deal. Well, I was wrong. Nobody wanted those books. So like sometimes and sometimes you don't, Mr. Miracle, nobody added to their pull bags. And then it was like Tuesday night, I got like 4 phone calls like, hey, you going to have Mr. Miracle in? And I'm like, yeah, I have him, but like, it's Mr. Miracle, man. You got to like tell me like this isn't like another X-Men book, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not a character that is extremely popular, and I'm a small shop. I can't just buy 30, 40 copies of every book that comes out. There's no way I could do it. Especially if there is, over 400 different comics coming out in a month or whatever.
Exactly. You got to take, you got to, hedge your bets. And if somebody doesn't tell you, like, that's another thing. The way DC, Marvel, and hell, like, pretty much anybody, I mean, the Alterna guys, everybody that Peter Simeti has, publishing through Alterna,
Mm-hmm.
these guys are like on their Twitter, they're talking about when the book's coming out. This is the final order cutoff. This is the code, the diamond code to tell your
Yeah.
retailer. They're doing everything these other creators should do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they still have personality. They're not just like one of the things I can't stand about a lot of people, especially comics community on Twitter. Shut up and talk about your comic. I don't want to hear about anything else. Like this, like don't listen to them. Then stop following them if that bothers you so much. But this idea
Right.
of telling people, like, promoting your book and loving what you do, and like Peter loves what he does. Peter loves the books he's got coming out. If he didn't, he wouldn't publish them. And you don't see any of these other people like Sobolski. He has a Twitter, but it's like read only or whatever. You can't reply to him. You reply to him, he doesn't see it.
Right.
And it's like, what's the point of that's why, like, what's the point of having him on Twitter? It's like
there's no interaction, none
exactly
whatsoever.
Like, you get interaction. I mean, like, hell, you get interaction from other people, like more important people, I guess you'd say, that actually have like influence. Like, what's the like at that point where you have creators that are pushing their product or promoting it, when companies, big companies, Marvel, DC, they have they have PR people, they have firms that probably do that stuff too. They do nothing. They do nothing to like get that book out there, except for like one blurb on the official account. But like, if I had a book coming out, it's like, oh, don't forget to pick up Force Works Revengeance, where Dreadnought and Spider Woman and Jack of Hearts, they're returning. This is the diamond code, so you can get your copy. For those, like, when you pick up the book, you take a photo with it. I'll give you a number, and at the end of the month, I'll like whoever gets the number pulled out of the hat. For those who took the photo, you'll get a free sketch of one of the ForceWorks characters of your choosing or something. If I was doing a book like that, like that kind of thing.
You're right. Like, there's no like you see some people that interact with fans and anybody they interact with each other, and you see some of them do that, and that's really good. They promote their stuff and they have fun, and they're not always talking about this, or they need to talk to us about the political climate or whatever the heck. They're talking about their comics, and there's a few people that I do follow, and what the funny thing is I follow a lot more fans than I do creators now, and that didn't used to always be the case. I started to actually, as a comic book store owner, unfollow some comic book creators because I just found them to be not productive and stuff that I didn't want to see. I followed you because I did want to see what you were working on, what projects you were. If I see 19 tweets about what's going on in the world, like every minute that I'm on Twitter, and it's like, man, I don't. This is kind of like, yeah, I know you're a person, and you have ideas, and you have your own opinions about political stuff and things like that. And I know you're not only just a comic book creator, but man, you're right about like they have PR departments and stuff like that. And Marvel is like, hey, West Coast Avengers is coming out, and then like you don't see anything about it for like the rest of the night or for weeks or months, and then someone's like, oh, hey, did that book come out? If you had the creators like interacting with fans, and when the fans say, hey, you doing this, and you're right, like you could be like, yeah, man, when you buy the book, and tell me what comic book shop you got it from, or take a picture of the book and tell me what you liked about it or whatever, and then I'm going to go through all these tweets and I'm going to send out something or whatever. You're right. That'd be cool. It'd be like fan interaction. Like, you don't see that from some of the bigger companies.
You don't. And it's this, there's something about the grassroots movement, if we're to say like the indie kind of guys, and it doesn't have to be, your all your comics are about navel gazing, black and white, about like oh how I'm emotionally stunted and how I hate drum, that kind of stuff. But like you could non-Marvel, non-DC work. If we'll say like Image, like oh Image needs to do like Image is a clearinghouse, just like Alterna, except Alterna is run by one guy, and you have a board, and you have all this and that Image, and Eric Stevenson isn't on Twitter, and he's the one in charge of like picking certain books. So people want to go after Image. It's like you're going after Image as a concept. It isn't a public. It puts books through. They're like a clearinghouse, and it's like you want to go after something, go after the individual creator for certain actions. But even then, it's like at that point, telling people what to do is like I would when somebody like oh, you're working a 9-to-5 job, and come up and like, yeah, you suck at this job. Yeah, this this like nobody. You wouldn't want that in real life. It's like I try not to tell people what to do, because it's like you could do it, but you're a dick, and at that point, you're not going to accomplish anything. You're just going to piss somebody off. Like, you couldn't handle the bants. You can't handle criticism. It's like go out and enjoy the life. Enjoy the real world. Get off the internet for a bit.
I think when you're writing, especially a high profile character, if you're writing Amazing Spider-Man, you're writing Cap and stuff like that, you're going to receive some criticism, and you're going to probably receive some people that are mad. I mean, you have this instant thing where you can contact someone right away. Back in the day, if someone did something in a comic book that you didn't like, you're like, screw these people. I'm going to write a letter, and then you're going to sit down and go, wow, this is kind of silly. I'm not going to actually write this letter. Or I might write it and be like, I'm not going to send this. This is stupid, right? So now it's like instant. It's very instant gratification, and everything's instant, right? So I think there's a little bit of that. Like, hey, is this a good idea to actually, tweet this? I don't really have to think about it, because it takes 3 seconds to tweet something mean to somebody. But you know what? Like, you could get, if you're on a public forum, you're going to get criticism. I've had people tell me things as well when I tweet things out, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And if someone's really mean, I just mute them and I move on with my life. It's not a big deal. I don't brag about it. I don't tell everyone like, hey, I muted this guy. I don't care. You got to have a little bit. The creators have to have a little bit of thicker skin, and but like, I don't go after people. I might say something in my mind, like, yeah, that's really great. Let's tweet about that. How is this helping comic books right now? I don't understand. Like, your book sells 2,000 copies. Nobody at my store asks for your stuff ever, and you're just gonna tweet something out that makes you look like a complete clown, or a coward, or a jerk. So I don't know. I don't understand. Do I tell them how to spend their day and how they should perform on social media or conduct themselves? No, it's not my place. But it'd be nice if you shaped up a little bit, because let me tell you, nobody cares about your comic books right now. And maybe if you were nicer and interacted with people and didn't call everyone a Nazi or an SJW, maybe whatever, whatever side you're on,
Yeah, it's like that. See, that's one of those problems. Like with these creators, like you have this reach, you have this potential to get fans interested in your book, like that kind of groundswelling of support, and they just waste it with, the same. And like, what they're gonna talk about what they're gonna talk about. Can you lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink? And I love the way that is, because that's how people are. People are stubborn to the point of, I'm going to do what I want to do. Like, but if you look at your sales, like if these creators had interest, just like stores do, and like sales, like okay, you get a flat fee for working on this, but if the book sells a certain amount, you get more. It's like commission almost. And if they actually had, so like you actually had to work for it, because it's not just, oh, I do this. It's like every job is the same. Because you look at these books, I mean, I used to like, God help me, like there was artists back in the 90s, Art Thibert and even Dan Panosian, and artists at the time that were not like, they weren't Jim Lee, or they weren't Mark Silvestri, they weren't, Michael Turner or whatever. These guys, I'm like, in a way, kind of look down upon, like, oh, they were like low tier, this, that, whatever. But you look at them now and the work and the effort, like, or even Ron Friends and like
Hmm.
Sal Buscema. These guys are still working, like that kind of, like they worked on Spider-Man, the Spider-Girl books
Yeah.
with Tom DeFalco. Love that comic. That's a great comic, Spider-Girl, and ran for like a long time. I mean, it was like
Hmm.
what that it was like the one that the only like MC2 book. It was where everybody else like kind of just shut kind of got fell by the wayside. They just kept going, chugged
Hmm.
along. Those artists I used to look down upon until I realized these guys are they're the workmen. They're the journeyman creators. Are they putting the most flashy stuff in there? No, but they're getting that comic done and done well. They are solid workers. It's like
Hmm.
it ain't like the Brooklyn Brawler in wrestling, but
Hmm.
they're like the mid Carter. They're not low, they're not high, but they're right there in
Hmm.
the middle. They're
Yeah, they're the
reliable.
worker. They're
They're the
the
worker.
workers. Yeah.
And you get these artists today and the same thing with writers too. It's like the work suffers, the story seems so half baked. Like there might be a kernel of something good in there, but it's not popped. And this art on these books and the covers too, when you got to lie for a cover, when you got to put like an Alex Ross cover and on the interior it's garbage, something's up. That just seems like bad marketing. I mean, of course, a lot of people they'll flip through books, like something to look right about this, but a lot of it I like the interior artists to do the covers. And if you're not quality enough to do the covers, you probably shouldn't be doing interior work. It's like Alex Ross and the rest of these people are doing these poster-like images that tell you nothing of the interior story, like those old like Nova, like the New Warriors, the covers for that. Like he flipped, it tells you kind of what's going on. Spider-Man, same thing. But when they do these, like it's like a poster image. I thought we got past this with the '90s. That's like one of the downsides about the '90s. That those covers that tell you nothing of the interior, and like that's one of those hangups I have about comics. And are there any like hangups like that you have? Like anything you see, like you wish they'd Marvel, DC, or hell, independent creators, like you wish they'd steer away from?
Like how they put the comic together.
Yeah, like that too. Yeah, definitely.
No, like I don't know. Like I do have a problem sometimes with the covers. Like it's like, man, this literally tells you nothing about what's going on in the story. That's great. You have this. Here's the team, and they're standing here, and like a lot of times you used to have the villain on the cover or whatever. Um, so there's kind of one of the things. Yeah, the covers definitely sometimes. You're like, man, you could do so much more. The variant covers and stuff like that. Uh, a lot of times they do these variant covers. They're like, here's a theme month, and you're like, so like they're you got the Return of the Fantastic Four, so they'll be like, Astonishing X-Men will have a Fantastic Four cover, and you're like, oh, is the Fantastic Four in this book? And you're like, no. You're like,
Oh,
why?
that thing.
Then
Oh
like,
God.
why do you do these theme books? Um, I feel like it's kind of silly, goofy that it's like you have Astonishing X-Men, whatever issues, whatever it was this week, 14 or whatever, and it was a Fantastic Four cover, and you're like, why? I don't understand. It's just a variant. But yeah, I mean, there's little things like that. You know, uh, Creators themselves, I do have to say, you know, when you tell a customer not to buy their stuff or you're not my audience or this, that, and the other thing, you got to remember that you're not the sole person working on that comic, and it's a partnership with everybody. You're a representative of the company that you work for. You are a partner with everyone that's name is on that comic book. You're a partner with the UPS guy that delivers it. You're a partner with the comic book shop that sells it. You're a partner with the distributor. So you got to remember that you telling someone to F off um, costs more people money. And I know it might be just one comic here or one comic there, but I'm not in the business to turn people away. So, like, like I think that's one of the things that really kind of upsets me when I see that. And I know that customers aren't, uh, they could be nasty at times and unruly. And there's definitely people that just say stuff to say stuff. Um, but you got to remember it's a business and it's a partnership. So like you might think, hey, I'm in this alone. It's my career and whatever. But there's a bigger picture, and I think it took me a while to understand that.
That right there, that's one of those things. Like you're dealing with in modern comics, like unless one person's doing it all. Like I do it. I try to do it all. I do pencils. I do inks. I do lettering. I do coloring. I do, I write. Do covers. I do everything. Some could say to my own detriment, but if it fails because of me. If it succeeds because of me. And I would learn from I learn my lessons as I go along. But when you're working as a part of a team, like you have to have that awareness that like you are a part of that team. And like you said, if you voice something hostile, like, I don't want you Nazis buying my comics. I'll block you all. I'm like, and you're going to hurt the potential for that book. You don't have to like it. You don't do the idea of do you think if you had to do a purity test for every person who walked in your door, it would be nightmarish. The same thing, you could say the same thing for okay, so if your private business, they should be able to do that. So, okay, so same thing with insurance companies, right? Or how about or a car dealership? Oh, I'm sorry, you said something really horrible on your social media. I won't sell you a car. That kind of thing. It's
10 years ago, you tweeted this out. It looks like your credit check isn't going to be good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly. It's silly.
It's one of those things like, where does it stop? Once you start, it doesn't stop. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And when you're dealing in the comic industry where it's not as big as it once was, it doesn't have, there's a lot of people go to conventions, but a lot of them are going for the toys, the collectibles, they're going for the cosplay. And you know what?
Stars, media guest,
Exactly. Like, see, Heroes Con here in Charlotte, over here, well, not here in Charlotte, I'm not in Charlotte, but in Charlotte, here in North Carolina, they used to have you'd have Lou Ferrigno show up and WWF's Virgil, and he'd literally Virgil just sitting down by himself, and he had Mick Foley there one year, and you had Rosario Dawson when she was doing her little comic thing, Occult Crimes Task Force was called. I physically ran into her accidentally. There's a crowd around her, and I'm cutting through these nerds. I'm like, get out of my way! I'm on a move, and you people are just like, you're just standing there. I didn't realize they were standing there, trying to get a picture, and I almost knocked her down. Like, oh, I'm sorry. And I righted her back up like a ship, and I'm like, she's like, oh, it's okay. You have a great day. And this and that. I was like, okay, that's nice. And and then my brother's like, you know her? So he didn't realize who it was because she did not look like Gail from Sin City because he recently watched that. So we did that kind of stuff. But it was funny to have that happen. Lately, it's just been comic book people, nothing but comic people, and they have an indie island and they focus on that. Though they had some of these people like, oh, that person has me blocked, and that person has me blocked, and that person has me blocked, because I follow Peter Simeti, and apparently Peter Simeti is he's a Nazi apologist, which is just, oh my god, you people are crazy, because he actually he retweets fans and customers and is supportive of people and doesn't do the purity test thing. So I guess anybody that follows him, there's people do block bots and that kind of stuff. And it's funny to see these people in the wild. One in particular is that I'll name names. Ramon Villalobos. He's the not quite Frank Quitely. The kind of Frank Quitely ripoff.
I think I met him. I was at Heroes Con 2 times before. And I want to say it was maybe it was 2013 and 2015, maybe. I don't know. It was 2 years apart, and I didn't go, obviously, this year, and I don't think he went last year, so it was the year before. So anyway, yeah, I've been there, and I think I met him. So it was before, I think I was blocked by maybe 1 or 2 Comics Pros then. Since then, I've been blocked a lot more, and just because of just black bots. I don't really interact with a whole lot of people, a whole lot of comic book creators actually anymore.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of these people. It's I had never had interaction with him. I actually had interaction when he was on DeviantArt years ago, and before he became a professional artist. I understand there's a lot of people, they start out, they have a style that's clearly somebody else. Like that Nick Bradshaw, he has a style that's basically Art Adams. It's you can't get Art Adams, I guess Nick Bradshaw is the closest thing. And the same thing with that Ramon Villalobos. You can't get Frank Quitely, he's the closest thing. though it's very janky. I mean, I'm a fan of Frank Quitely's work, but even I'll admit Frank Quitely's work can be janky. This dude's extremely janky. Same thing with that Nick Bradshaw. It's like it just doesn't look right. It's like somebody trying to be R. Adams too much. And maybe develop your own style first, before like being put on, like books like Wolverine and the X-Men and stuff like that. It's like just weird. It's always been weird to me when, you're trying to be R. Adams, but you're not. And it's just, it has always felt weird to me. But these people in comics,
I like Nick Bradshaw's art, by the way.
It's not like it's that's the thing. It's like, I mean, hey, that's you know what, you have that right to be wrong, but but no, but it's like, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like I mean, I like weird art too. I like weird art, so I can't complain too much. Like people are like, well, you really like that, like that kind of stuff. So it's like, yes, I do. So what? But yeah, it's like, I'm. When I deal with these creators, like whether online, we're just communications, just like simple communication or whatever. I've found a lot of them, like, they're a lot of the old guard. They're very let's say very sensitive. They're not used to the constant feedback. They're used to maybe getting letters, possibly when they were working for Marvel or DC and stuff like that. But the younger guys, the ones that get it, the up and the people that actually have to grind for their sales, that interact with comic shops, they interact with customers and potential fans, and they try to generate like grassroots support. They, like I said, like they just want to work with people and want people to buy their books. They get it. I think that's the future. But because comic shops, I honestly, comic shops exist. Like it's gonna, there'll probably be some rough times for a lot of them, like they're going through now. I mean, like, more and more clothes, and like people say, it's only one thing. It's all SJWs, and they're this, that. It's like, no, it's not just that. The costs are too damn high, and $4 for a comic, like that's a sticker shock. If somebody pays $8 for a movie ticket, or 10 or 12, and you come in there, it's like a third of the price is the cost of a comic. Like I can go see a movie, for that much.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. There isn't, there's not just one group or another group or whatever. I mean, when you see like all these comic book shops closed too, you gotta, like there's a responsibility for the comic book shop owner as well, for doing things. Like maybe if comics aren't doing so well, then you got to move in a different direction to sell. So it's like, you can't just be like, oh, thanks, blah, 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 for closing this store. I kind of laugh as a business owner being like, okay, like, ultimately, if this business fails, it's probably my fault. So I'm not going to blame anyone else. I did it and I failed or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's a weird industry because we are at the mercy of the products we sell. We're at the mercy of one distributor. We are at the mercy of the products. I can't tell, hey, Jim Lee, we really need this kind of comic at DC. Can you whip it up? Like, I don't have that, So you just wait and see, and hopefully the products are good, and you got to trust that they're doing what what they think is going to sell. Hopefully it sells for us as well. But yeah, it's strange. It's a strange kind of thing. It's strange. It's strange getting blocked by someone that you have to sell comics, on Twitter. It's weird. Like you were talking about the Heroes Con thing, and you're running into people. It's weird to be like, I never interacted with you, and I follow everybody. And yeah, I do follow Diversity Comics. He has like 80 something subscribers on YouTube. He has some sort of insight to the comic industry, and he obviously is saying stuff that people want. So like, I want to know what he has to say. Obviously I don't agree with everything he says, but I want to know what he's saying. Like, it's interesting to me what he's saying. It's interesting to me what Ethan Van Sciver's saying. It's interesting for Mitch Brettweiser, like all those people. Like, and I know because I follow them, I got blockbotted by a bunch of other people, and it's weird because I was following, Heather Antos because I want to know, like, if she has some sort of thing to promote her comic as a comic book shop owner. I want to know those news. I don't necessarily have to like interact with her, but it's nice to know, hey, she's available on Twitter. I would like to see what she's promoting, or oh, the book is coming out. Oh yeah, man, that is on final order cutoff. I gotta change this or that. Cool, thanks. And it's weird that you don't. You block me. It's like like I'm the one ordering the comics.
You have to choose a side, don't you know that? You have to choose a side.
Right. I don't choose any sides. It's funny. It's like I'm my own person. I had someone yell at me and tell me, I'm just like an SJW or this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, no, I don't. Whatever. You can call me whatever you want. Your opinion. That's your opinion. That's great. You're entitled to it. But like, no, I'm just myself. I never claimed to be anybody but me. So like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't want to pick a side. I don't have to pick a side. I definitely agree with one side more than the other. That's for sure.
Yeah,
But,
I have my own side. That's the thing. It's like if I had to pick a stance, it's like I want more people reading comics. I want more people making comics. I want the comic prices to go down. I want more comics variety. I don't care if the person has like, as much as I can't stand socialist, communist, those kind of people. You know what? Make your own comics. I won't buy them, but which is funny. Make your socialist making comics, you expect to get free. So whatever. I don't know. But
well,
it's
I think I had an unpopular opinion when I said I was like, I want everyone that wants to be able to make comic books to make them, and I want everyone that wants to buy them to be able to buy them. Like that's my stance. Like I want to sell as many comics to as many people as possible. Like that's my goal, and I don't care who wrote them, who drew them, and who wants to buy them. And I don't know. I think maybe that people are like, oh, I understand what you're saying, but you gotta get these type of people out and these type of people. I'm like, dude, if the books don't sell, if people don't like their books, they won't be in this industry. Sooner or later, it'll catch up to them. It will.
Especially if you have people. That's one of those things. You have people that they may have a marquee name for a while, but their books are like, I was looking at the sales numbers, the figures for that Plastic Man #1. That was not. Some books could start out like in that range, like 30,000 range, and then pick up. Like there might be issue 2 dip. There usually is, and then 3 and 4 and so on and so forth. But likelihood of that happening these days, not so likely. I don't see it being. I don't see it happening. And do I wish certain books to fail? Well, it wouldn't hurt my feelings, but I'm not out there doing voodoo rituals trying to curse people. I mean,
right.
I don't have the time for it. But there are people that think, oh, we'll get it's it's like the terrorism thing, or fighting a war on drugs or war on crime. Oh, we get rid of this, it'll solve everything. It never does. It's never that simple. This isn't this isn't like a simple. You go over here, you do this, you're done. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing in retail, when you're dealing I've never worked retail directly, but I have worked enough, worked tables and sold stuff, and I've enough times where you could have a miserable day. You could be like a splitting headache, but try to be on your best behavior. I have sold stuff, and at that point, I wanted to just scream aloud and just flip the table over, and then flip the table. I didn't. I kept my cool. I dealt with people. I dealt with people knocking my stuff over. I'm surprised. I'm like, wow, I kept my cool through that. So I'm like, if I kept my cool through that, I kept my cool through almost anything. Like knocking my stuff over, just talking really weird, crazy stuff. I mean, I've dealt with cult members. The guy's like trying to recruit me to the cult. I mean, like crazy stuff has happened to me when I've sold stuff behind, but on the other side of the table, like we're on your side of the table, as it were, counter. It's been weird. And there's people that they don't realize that when you have you have somebody make you choose a side. It's like, you got to choose a side, their side, the right side or the wrong side. I'm like, it makes no sense. Why do this? Why limit yourself because things change? Like that's why this idea of the purity test, oh, you're blocked by this. At the end of the day, it's like they're slitting their own throats and they don't even realize it.
I mean, I could offer my advice and what I think. how you should conduct yourself. But you're grown up. You do whatever you want to do. I think it's foolish, but you do whatever you want to do. You know, you want to use black bots or whatever, or go for it. Like, I think you will find yourself, eventually, if you block everybody, you'll find yourself with no customer base or a very slim customer base, maybe. A lot of the people that come into the comic book shop, they don't even pay attention to social media. I do have a few, and they'll mention it to me every now and again. But for the most part, they're just like, oh, yeah, Fantastic Four is back. I want that, right? So, the main thing, you got to get good stories and you have to have good art. That's going to help the industry. So you need to have good editors. The editorial staffs need to be able to be picking the right creative teams for the right books. I think maybe not publishing so many comics.
That's the biggest thing. Like, there are so many, like, people say there's not enough money out there for certain creators to work on books, and there's some creators, like, they're still alive. Get them while they're still alive. Like Chris Claremont, get him writing an X-Men book, and not just a one short story, or one shot like they're doing at Magneto. I'm like, oh crap, Claremont back, and like, oh, it's a one shot story. Forget it. Like, I'm not going to sink $4 or $5 for a one shot story at Marvel. If Claremont was back, and you said, like, okay, we got Claremont and Alan Davis, or Paul Smith, or
John Byrne.
Oh God, how great would it be to have John Byrne back?
Well, Claremont CB was talking to him. CB Cebulski, I guess, was reaching out to him or something. Man, I'd love to see some John Byrne stuff.
Oh, that would be so great. I'd love to see him. Honestly, I'd love to see Claremont, because I think Claremont has the energy. Claremont to write like 2 or 3 books, like Uncanny with Byrne, like on the first arc, like do like 6 issues, like keep it tight, like, so they don't get, like, stretched out too thin. Or like, let's say Byrne first on the art, then Walt Simonson, or have Walt and Louise work on a book by themselves. Oh God, like a X Factor kind of deal. Oh, I love this. Oh, good old days will return. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were great. Those books. It's funny because it's like, you watch sports and you go, he's got that, you got that older player, the veteran on the team, and he's kind of like helping along the other players, and it's like, do they have that? In some of these places? Are they, because everything could be done from your home now, and I could live in New York and you could live in North Carolina. We don't even ever have to see each other, or the other people that we work. Is there not that, like, mentorship, like, hey, you're stuck on a story, I'll help you with this or that, or be like, oh, this character did this, and this, and I feel like maybe the editors, some of these companies have kind of dropped the ball on the editorial staff with that. And maybe, you don't have the veteran writer or the veteran artists helping along the newer talent, for the next generation,
You're right, because there's a lot of things, like, we got to think, a lot of these people used to be the editors, the art directors. These are these people that were writers. They may not, they may decide, like, let me take, they get talked into taking up an editorial position, or like you had, I think Anthony Ascenti was an editor for a while, and Claremont was an editor. I mean, a lot of these people, they were editors for the longest time, and then eventually they go into work, start writing, or maybe they were writers, and vice versa. Like Peter Tomasi, he was an editor.
Mark Waid, yeah.
Mark Waid, yeah, exactly. It's like Mark Waid pretty much invented Wally West, even though the character was around before. But like the Wally West we know and love, which DC just like, hey, we brought him back, and now he's going into a hug box. The hero asylum or whatever.
Right, the heroes in crisis. Yeah,
heroes. God Almighty! Look, I've been joking in a way, semi-joking, that Tom King's a CIA plant. It's like a false flag operation, like Operation Northwoods or Gulf of Tonkin. He's going to sink comic books. It's like everybody's like mad at the DC PR by putting out that statement with the wedding, which is just still so stupid. And it's like, everybody forgets he's the one that said, "Hey, I'm not going to have him get married because, well, in CIA operations." CIA, the same organization that hired Nazis after World War II, that had them on the payroll. It's like, well, we need the CIA. Are you against the CIA, Larry? I'm against any people that hire Nazis, even NASA, Werner von Braun, anyone. So I'm anti-Nazi when it comes to true Nazis, not this Nazi ideology or the people put that ideology on them or that label.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's like but with it when it comes to like Marvel, if they were to do that, if they're doing a Chris Claremont on a book, like, even if it was like only for a year, give him like at least something, like a way to go out, because he ain't getting any younger.
Mhm.
Neither is Byrne, but oh my god, if you can't get Byrne, Claremont and Art Adams do an annual, and then like the annual to like kind of like Claremont and Adams on an annual, and then spin a series off of that or something, like, have it
Yeah, I'd
continue.
like to see like a series, even if it was just like a 12-issue series, or you did a couple mini series. I like to see Claremont come back. I like to see Byrne do something, and not just do covers and variant covers and stuff. Like actually work on something, a project that he wants to do.
Yeah,
That would be cool. And I think it's kind of weird because I see it a lot of times. It seems like the editors are just like, "Hey, I know you. Do you want to work on the Punisher?" And I'm like really worried that like they're not actually getting pitches. Like the writers aren't actually pitching to the editors. That the editors are being told, "Hey, we need a Punisher book," and they're like, "Oh, hold on," and they go through their contacts and go, "Oh, hey." You're cool. We have some of the same friends. Do you want to write the Punisher? Like it's just kind of weird because it's like, are they like, oh, we picked this person for this role and that, and I'm like, oh, I thought you like ideas got pitched. Like, hey, the writer was like, hey, I got a really great idea for a Punisher story, and they were like, oh, okay, we'll publish a Punisher book then. Like
yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand how that all works, and I feel like maybe some people are pitching and stuff like that. But for the most part, like I see some kind of like when they talk about their backstories and stuff like that, it just seems kind of like, oh, yeah, I called this person. I thought they would be perfect for this book. And it's like, oh, why didn't you have them pitch it then?
Exactly. That's one of those things. Like, if they're missing that passion for the stories, the characters, and everything like that. This idea I've been wanting to do for the longest time. This is the pitch, and I pitched it multiple times, different editors, and then finally one of them took me up on the offer, kind of thing. And
Right,
like
right.
you don't hear that no more. You don't get that because there are people that they get tapped for certain projects. It's not like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, sure, why not? Like that kind of, you don't want that kind of person. You want the person that has a passion. It's like,
Mhm.
like I want to do a West Coast Avengers. Like I want my Avengers team would be X-51 the Machine Man and Jack of Hearts, and then you'd also have honestly I'd throw in Devil Dinosaur, Moon Girl. Even though I'm a Moon Boy fan, but like it'd be kind of a Kirby heavy team in a way.
Mhm.
Like then you'd have one of one the first stories is remember Red Ronin, the giant robot from the 70s.
Yes, yes, yes.
Red Ronin be the first story. Evil alternate, like basically evil Red Ronin comes through a portal and starts attacking San Francisco. And then like X-51 the Machine Man's like, we couldn't hurt. It could be an improvement. It's like but it turns out like I'd have it go where Red Ronin, the whole reason he's attacking is so think it's a lands grab scheme, like destroy San Francisco so somebody could buy it up and like develop it as like a billionaire's only playground. Like kind of like what's happening now. So it's like my little sly commentary. Uh, but then like you have like how do we battle it? And then like X-51 Machine Man turns in almost like Jet Jaguar and grows like and he fights, man. He fights Red Ronin. But but he's like, my circuits can't handle this. I need people and I need you inside me. And he's like, what? Like they need to climb inside him and like kind of like touch like basically like almost like a reset, like or like a flip a circuit breaker because like his body isn't used to this, whatever. And so you have like Jack of Hearts, like in there, like flipping switches or whatever, like this kind of weird fun. But fun 70s kind of 60s tongue in cheek modern, whatever, postmodern comics a little bit too, but. Oh God! If one of the things I'd be like, hey Marvel, can you get the Godzilla license back? I want to have Godzilla fight Red Ronin again. Like actually, have Godzilla look like Godzilla, not some just green dinosaur looking thing. But I mean, like if there, okay, you said previously like you wish you could call up like DC and like, hey, I want this kind of book. What book would that be? If you could, okay, you call up any company, like let's say you have to choose between Marvel and DC or whatever. Call them up, like you choose the writer, you choose the artist, you choose like maybe the concept,
Oh
characters.
man.
What would you do? You only have, but you only get one book from either. What would you go with?
So like I know they already announced the Uncanny X-Men team, but like I think we desperately needed an Uncanny X-Men book. And I think people have been wanting it, but you need someone good. And Ed Brisson, I think, is going to be doing the Uncanny X-Men book. But I think a lot of people thought maybe it was Jonathan Hickman, and I kind of want to see Jonathan Hickman's take on Uncanny X-Men. And the artists, there's like, there's tons of great artists out there. I don't know who I would pair them with. Yeah, I love like Dustin Weaver stuff is cool that he's worked with before. And
Dale Eaglesham, who did the Fantastic Four run with Hickman.
Yeah.
I loved his take on the Fantastic Four. I loved his take on the Justice Society book when he did that. Like his Star Girl was the best Star Girl. She actually looked like a kid without being like sexualized, which has always been that's weird. Like it's supposed to be a teenage girl, and like like you can make her look like a girl, teenage girl, and not make it look kind of pervy. And he was able to do that without making her look pervy. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think Hickman on Uncanny X-Men with maybe Ivan Reis, who's working with Bendis. I've never seen him do. I think he worked for Marvel for a very, very little bit, but yeah, I've never seen him really do those characters. So that I think would be really cool. I don't know. There's a ton of artists that I love, and I just can't think of them right now. But yeah, I think Hickman on X-Men, I think that would probably be one of the books. I think it would be a mega hit.
I'd love to see that as well, because Hickman's one of those guys. Like I haven't been. The only book I was disappointed in was that the Shield book with it was the one he co-wrote with Bendis, like the Howling Commandos book, the one that's
Secret Warriors.
Yeah, Secret Warriors. That's the one. And because it didn't feel like his own voice, because I think he was going off Bendis's plots or something like that. But that Shield book, which I'll get the hardcover when that comes out, because I was reading it and I was like, what happened to this book? It was like it was done. Like he'd finished it years ago, and like now it's finally coming out. Like it finally came out. Which that's another one of those like, what's going on here?
That was weird.
But yeah, Hickman's one of those guys. I remember hearing a rumor years ago that he was going to jump ship to DC and work on Legion of Superheroes.
Oh wow, that would be cool. We need a Legion of Superheroes book, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Like the last one was that really regrettable Paul Levitt's Legion book that came out during New 52. And oh man, that was just bad. Like it's honestly, last good Legion of Superheroes book was Superman and Legion of Superheroes. Where the book starts out like this alien couple sends their baby to Earth, and these humans find it and kill the baby. It's like Earth for Earthlings, and it was just like so just outrageous. But because I loved it still. It was I found it funny, and he comes back and the Earth is there's a red sun, so Superman doesn't have his powers. He gets shot. And then the Legion takes him off and all this stuff. And there's like Earthman is the bad guy, and like, oh god, it's good, but it's like kind of eye-rollingly. It's like so cheesy, like so ham-fisted in its message. But I still loved it. But I'd love to see like Hickman. Somebody would
That's really cool. That'd be cool for. I mean, I know we're just picking names and being like, oh, they'll be cool about it. I mean, obviously these people have to have some interest in actually writing and drawing the books, but. On the paper, it sounds, like that sounds really cool.
Yeah, because
I like Donny Cates a lot at Marvel, and he's doing a great job with Venom. So I'd like to see him do some DC stuff too. And another guy, Joshua Williamson, is one of my favorite writers, and he's doing the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like. He was at Marvel for a very brief second. Like he did the Illuminati book or whatever I think it was, and that went like 7 issues, and that was it. And it was a really good run, but they just didn't give it. Nobody, didn't give it a chance or whatever. So I think him on like an Avengers book, or maybe like an Iron Man or something, I think he would do really well.
I think that would be a really good fit for him, because a lot of these guys, I would love to see like what would be like if they could pitch their books, because I think the way they do that stuff today, it's so weird. It's like editorial is almost, it's like the editorial almost gives you the plot and you just got to go with it. Like, all right, the editors got together, this is what's going to happen, and you just write it. So it's not even, there's no passion in the work, and I think that really shows for a lot of the Marvel books. And there's a lot of people that they're just okay with that, but I couldn't be. I'd have to love what I'm doing. It's like, like, hey, I want to bring this character, and hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like, add more to it as I go along, because there's something missing about that. As crazy as like the '90s was for like Marvel and even DC. I mean, like their Image happens, and what happens right after Image? They break Batman's back, they kill Superman. Rip
Hal
Wolverine's
Jordan goes crazy.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah, Tony Stark goes crazy, and they bring the teenage young Tony Stark with Jim Chung art. Oh my God, he was like, that was the biggest disappointment with that Justice League. The fact that they have Jim Chung and they have used him for 1 issue. I'm like, I know the dude probably can't do, comic book every 2 weeks, but that was just like, why have him for the first issue at all? The book's going to sell either way. It's Justice League #1. It's Snyder's Justice League. It was going to sell either way, but it felt really off-putting to have like one artist for the first issue, and then Jorge Jimenez for issues 2, 3, 4, and so on. And just outright, it's always bothered me. I've never liked that, like reading individual. People say it's different when if you read individual, it isn't as impactful if you're reading, the trade paperback, like as far as like art changes. And I don't know, man. It's like it sucks either way. It's like you're looking at, oh, that's Jim Chung, and that's not Jim Chung, and that's not Jim Chung.
I really like at least like the story arc to have the same artist. Like
yes,
it does bother me. I mean, they were doing that with Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. It's like obviously I love EVS's stuff. Love his art since he did Green Lantern Rebirth the first time, in the early 2000s. And it would be like, oh, you get 1 issue of EVS, and then it's like you have like 2 or 3 issues of somebody else, which the art was good. It's just a different style. And because it's a different style for, each issue, you don't get a full story arc of just Ethan stuff, So it's like you get 1 issue in a story arc of Ethan stuff. So yeah, that kind of would bother me, especially if you did get the trade. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, that's one of those things like when you remember Infinite Crisis. You remember how there was like 5 artists on that? It was like Ordway, Jimenez, George Perez, and like a couple other people. I think Ivan Reyes on that. Their styles are similar, but they're not. They're not the same.
I know.
It was jarring, and it was rushed too. I remember because in the back of the hardcover that I picked up, the collection, there's like, oh, we were able to finish the artwork, because I think the initial run I was like, why does this look so? Something about this looks weird, because like I believe it was Ivan Reyes' part. Like, there's like he drew people around the center like fighting, around the edges fighting, but the center was like kind of like half finished pencils. So they just slapped a bunch of red onto it to make it just like like distract you, so it's just all red, so you're not really paying attention to one thing. And it was because it was unfinished. It was like, oh my God, what was going on here?
I think they changed the script. Like, I think when you read that book, Infinite Crisis, right? I think they were going to kill Nightwing was the initial story, and they swapped it and they killed Superboy.
Yeah, because they did that because they were going to, as Didio for the longest time has been wanting Dick Grayson dead. Like I know that's that's the rumor that's gone. I met him at a convention at Heroes Con back in 2008. The guy was way too intense. Like, he's tightly wound. it was like he almost like wanted to break my neck for just saying hi to him. It's like it was really weird. I was like,
It was a
wow,
tense time. It might have been a really intense time, you know.
it could have been. I mean, 2000. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
this
I
is the
think
guy.
Marvel was pumping out some good stuff still. Like
Yeah,
really,
true.
I
Like
mean,
this
and I
after
dog Marvel
Civil
and
War.
right now, but like I like the Venom, I like Avengers. There's a lot of stuff that I like from Marvel, but overall, yeah, I'm unhappy with it.
Well, Hawkman's the best book. You called that right there. Like Hawkman being the best book that they got coming out now is as far as the big two goes. That is everything. Honestly, that's everything I'd want in a comic. Each issue stands alone, but it builds to a greater story. Everything's been so like a rock. It's like it's rock and roll. It's kick ass. It's there's action adventure. It's just wonderfully done. There's great character work too. Like there's like the older Birdman, the Airy, the one of the members of the Irie or whatever, the blind Birdman that was waiting for Hawkman in the last issue,
Hmm.
where he's like sitting there and he's like, I wish I could see you, like this kind of thing. I've heard tales of you from
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then he
yeah.
like
I'm thinking back now.
he fades away into and so it's like kind of like he missed out on the opportunity. I was like, because of Hawkman forgetting what his mission is, because the reincarnation and everything like that. It's
Hmm.
like it's making like it's really really good, and then like the next issue is going to be better. I was like, this book is worth every penny. This has been everything I want. Like, this is the best Hawkman book that's ever come out, because that's one of even the Johns book from back in the day with Rags Morales
Hmm.
on artwork. I think Van Sciver did some as well, but the problem with that book was it was like, yeah, man, we're brutal. It's like it doesn't have felt like it was kind of like being it was trying to be too hard and
Hmm.
not like Hawkman's closer. Hawkman comes out of the Flash Gordon stuff, and this feels like more like Flash Gordon than anything. This like that's why I wish there was
Hmm.
like a Hawkman movie, like that kind of thing. Like that'd be fantastic to see that happen.
So I haven't read a whole lot of Hawkman. Maybe hard. I've never read like a whole series. I think I've read like a comic here and there, um, and it reminds me of something else. But yeah, this is really, really, really great series. No, but so like I was looking in the back issues, and I think it was probably around that run or maybe a later of Hawkman. I
Mm-hmm.
found a Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips Hawkman story. It was a standalone
What?
issue, and I was
I
like
missed
so
this.
dude, I was so happy because I love Ed Brubaker. And that goes back to your other question before. Like, tell Ed Brubaker to go back to Marvel and pick whatever project he wants to do
I
and kick whoever is on that book off. I don't care.
thrown to the wolves.
I love like Ed Brubaker, dude, he's my favorite. Ed Brubaker, Shaw Phillips, they were my favorite creative team on any of their crime stuff. But Sean does great with the crime stuff. Maybe he's not so much of a superhero artist. But like Ed Brubaker, like his Cap was great and all that stuff. So I would be like, what do you want to do here? Like what's broken? What what franchise do we need to fix? Do you want to write do you want to write the X-Men? And I know he has before. Do you want to write Fantastic Four? What do you want to write? And I would just give it to him.
I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him write Batman. I got to say, like, as much as everybody loves Tom King, and it's like I said, I'm not a Tom King fan. If he's like Brubaker's like, yeah, I want Batman. Yeah, Tom, get out of here. Go back to CIA. We got somebody else.
I
Because like
think he would do great on like Batman or Green Arrow or
if
any of those.
did you ever read Gotham Central?
No, I haven't. And you know
Oh
what?
my God.
I have
Okay,
the omnibus at the store. I should read.
okay. Have you read? Did you ever read No Man's Land? Batman No Man's Land?
No, I'm not a huge
Oh,
Batman fan. No.
well, see, I'm not the biggest. I go through phases where I'll read a bunch of like say a bunch of Cap or a bunch of
Yeah.
Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, so on and so forth. Found out I'm not a big fan of modern Wonder Woman takes. I'm more of I like the Golden Age Wonder Woman, how crazy that was. Like everything was just I just and I thought, oh yeah, I love Golden Age Wonder Woman. I love Wonder Woman Earth One. Nope, hated it. Yes, I'm like this is like yeah, this is Grant Morrison I don't like. And even Yannick Paquette's art is not the best it was. I mean, his art doesn't look as good as it did when he did Swamp Thing with Snyder,
Mhm.
but that's my opinion. It just looks too like lifeless. It looks kind of lifeless. It doesn't have that kind of that thickness, the kind of the weight that he did
Mhm.
when he did Swamp Thing. Also, like it was amazing looking with Swamp Thing, but with with No Man's Land, it actually feeds into. There's something that happens in No Man's Land, and it feeds into like Gotham Central. There's nothing like too big, but No Man's Land, the first issue, like there's the prelude, and then there is the cataclysm. The earthquake, like the rumblings, and then the actual earthquake happens, and then the U.S. declares, Gotham, No Man's Land. Like we're not going to bother. No aid, no this that. So it becomes like a giant gang war. Batman and his just swinging around with a grappling hook. No Batmobile. No Batwing. No nothing. Just basically Batman and the GCPD and Poison Ivy and Mister Freeze and Joker and all this and that. And they're all like fighting over rubble. So it's kind of weirdly like it feels like almost post-apocalyptic.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really good stuff. Like there's an issue where there's this man. Think of it came out way before it, but think of the movie Up. It's like this guy and his wife had a house, and then the house, in Gotham, the rubble around is like his house, like one of the few that survived, and his wife dies, so he's there by himself, and then these gangs come by, and he's like sitting on their porch with a shotgun. He's like, "I ain't leaving. You ain't taking my home," kind of thing. So it's like and Mister Freeze comes by, and and like he realizes like the guy's wife, he's a widow and everything. So he's like, Mister Freeze is like kind of like, "I feel you," and he leaves, that kind of thing. But it's really good stuff like that. There's like really good moments like that. Bane shows up later in the event, arc, and everything. But Gotham Central, it's Crispus Allen, Renee Montoya, Jim Gordon, of course, Harvey Bullock. Like it's like what I thought that Gotham show was going to be about. Like just the cops and like folk, like cops and supervillains and maybe Batman occasionally, but mainly just cops and supervillains. And the character work with Renee Montoya, with everybody in that book, it is so good. And it's like this is the kind of stuff I wish Marvel DC would actually bring back. There's no book like Gotham Central out there right now, it's crime, but it's not. It's focused on character motivations, but also really heavily plot. It's kind of like reminds me of The Wire or Homicide: Life on the Street, but without being very shallow, like a shallow ripoff of that. It feels very natural to the world. So if you have a chance to read it, it's a pretty hefty read. It's like it's like 40, 50 issues or something. It's good though, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably eventually read it because it's Brubaker and it's was it Greg Rucka and was it Michael Lark was the artist and stuff. So like I'm a fan of those guys. More Brubaker than everybody, but yeah, I mean, I think I would check that out. I think you're talking about Wonder Woman and you like Golden Age Wonder Woman. I actually really liked the New 52 Wonder Woman when Brian Azzarello was writing.
I actually hated that the most.
Did you really?
Yeah. They made one to me when I read it. It made Wonder Woman a secondary character in her own book.
I can see that. Yeah.
I hated the costume. The fact that like with Wonder Woman, like if you've actually read any of the, and that's one thing I don't know if Azzarello read any of the old Wonder Woman books.
See, I've never really read Wonder Woman, so maybe that's why I liked it.
Well, the thing about it is like with the gauntlets represent the bondage that the Amazonians are put under, and then like they use that bond, the whole ricocheting bullets is like using that what would be repressive as something to defend themselves and use like to deflect any harm. Is in like arrows or bullets, back at their enemies, and like so it's like very metaphorical. So this idea of that Wonder Woman wearing a choker and that horrible design costume, Jim Lee, draw comics, don't design costumes. Like yes, you did great with the '90s X-Men, it stood the test of time, but please don't do any. The New 52 designs prove the guy can't design stuff. Like we should have known better when he did that. The Wonder Woman with the black pants and that did the jacket look like. What is that? I Am the Warrior, I Am the Warrior music video. It looks like something out of that. What is it, Patti Smith or whatever? Patti Smythe. But yeah, that kind of look. It was, but that book, they said they make it like her a secondary character, and then they did the origin where now she's just like Hercules, like she's just another bastard of Zeus, and that bores me. Like, Wonder Woman has like one of the most unique origins. Like, well, it's too complicated for like she was. Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, island of women. You can't have kids. There's no men. She wants a child. She makes one out of clay. Hera gives a child life. So it's basically a lesbian love child, if you want to look at it that way. and she gets brought to life and then becomes a warrior, and she's there for war but also peace. And I love that aspect of her. And then it's like, well, now she's just like Zeus just gave it to Hippolyta, and now she has a kid. That's it. And it just
thought it would have been cooler if it was like Ares was their father, though. I don't know.
Well, they did that. They did that for Wonder Girl, though. That's
yeah, right.
For Cassie Sandsmark. That's
yeah,
her
that's
origin.
Right.
So it's like that right there. That's so hack though to give it to like, oh, your father is the real villain. It's the Darth Vader thing. It's the
yeah, I know.
it's like, I've seen this before, and then like what they did with as Rolo did with the New Gods, I was like, no, you didn't. He made the New Gods like they look like they raided a biker like a biker bar. They were not written correctly. I'm like, I understand this is New 52.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Oh my God. See,
so I have no prior knowledge to New Gods, really. Like I've never read like a huge run of them, or I'm not really familiar with the characters. And same thing like with Wonder Woman, I know the like basic stuff about Wonder Woman, and I've read like issues before, but I've never read like John Byrne stuff or George Perez's stuff or any of that stuff. I've never read any of her runs. So like this was like my first run of actually reading it, and I liked it. I don't know, I like the God stuff and all the weirdness of it. But yeah, I could see why you wouldn't like it.
It's so funny. It's like kind of like I guess because I read so many. Also, I've never, like I said, never run retail, so I don't have that, the time consuming stuff, going through paying the bills and make sure employees are getting paid and this is getting taken care of and all this and that. But it's like somebody said, Larry, you're being like a gatekeeper, and I'm like, damn it, you're right. And I feel like it. Like I'm not going to take it back, like this. Like I guess because I've read so many of these books, I used to just be able to sit down and like go through like 500 pages worth of comics in like a couple hours, just like blow through them. And I amassed so many books, I started just giving them away. There was somebody, I told him, yeah, I got so many comics, I just don't do them. Like, if you're interested, I'll take them off your hands. I'm like, all right. So those big boxes, the UPS, US Postal Service big boxes, like the flat rate boxes, I got like 5 of them, and they're like $12 a piece. I stuffed them full of comics, and I shipped them. And I was like, I didn't think you'd be sending that many. I got more. It's like, no, please. So they got home from work, and they had all these boxes on their porch. It's like, I'm like letting them in, like bringing them in. I was like, this is kind of cool. And it was just funny because they have that happen, because it's like, I used to have that many. I've just had to cut it down. But
yeah,
but I get that. It's like, there are good places to start. Like
I've read a ton, but it's like I grew up as a Marvel fan, so I really was more familiar with those characters, and I'd read DC here and there, but it wasn't until the Jeff Johns, Ethan Van Sciver, Green Lantern Rebirth that got me into DC more. It was like, oh, Hal Jordan's back. I really always liked that character when I read the older issues, and that got me into it. And then I started picking up other books and stuff like that. So like the earlier 2000s is probably where I started. And then I went back and was like, I had read like Kingdom Come before, and I had read like Crisis on Infinite Earths before, but it's not like I've read like whole runs of stuff with DC. So it wasn't until I was like 17, 18 that I actually started reading whole runs of DC and getting into it. And I'm still more familiar with the Marvel characters than I am DC, because I've read a ton of Marvel. But yeah, like Wonder Woman wasn't ever a character that interested me, so I never read that. And New Gods was like, I don't even know where I would begin. And same thing with Legion of Superheroes. I would never even know where to begin. I was just like, there's so many characters,
Well, the New Gods, I mean, I would not pick up the omnibus. Apparently, that's really janky. There's the New Gods omnibus. There's like they messed up some printing. There's some printing errors, pages out of order, pages missing. But DC, like back in the late '90s, they put out these trade paperbacks of the New Gods books, but they were black and white, or really grayscale.
Yeah, the showcase kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, it was before Showcase, actually. They were,
really?
They were cheaper, but they were almost like a newsprint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because like they could have done them in color, but for some reason they did it in like this black and white with this like, grayscale. So like there's where it should be color. It's almost like when you photocopy like a color image. It's kind of like that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they did those, and that's how I read it because it was like $10 a volume. So I got the entirety of the New Gods stuff for $40. I didn't know that there was Jimmy Olsen and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, which actually has the New Gods show up there as well. That was actually the first appearance, like with Inner Gang as well. Like Kirby created Inner Gang and all that stuff, like Bruno Mannheim and the Cadmus and all that. Like I mean, that's Kirby Creations. And to read these books, like there's the Orion stuff, and I was like, when I first saw like a Mr. Miracle book when I was a kid, this neighborhood, he became a bully. We were friends at first, then he started bullying me. He beat me with his cast arm. He had his arm in a cast, and he beat me with that because he put a metal rod in the cast, and I don't know why he would do that, but he thought I guess it would make his arm even stronger, be able to hit me harder, and so I had to adore it. You have to endure, Master Bruce. It's that kind of stuff. And it was, but he had taken a Mr. Miracle book, and it's the Battle of the Id. I think it's Mr. Miracle number 6. Like he's hooked up to the Matrix basically, and he had added. There's like a part where he's like inside this being, this like putty monster's brain. Mr. Miracle has got to go in there and fight him and then escape. And in the first page, there's like these guys like wincing as that these cables are wrapped around their neck, and he drew with a red marker blood dripping down from their eyes and nose. So I was like, oh my god, that's horrifying, that kind of thing. And it's not actually in the real issue. He just did it because he's a sick freak, and it was just that kind of thing. But the books were really fun, action packed. And Kirby swipes at Stan Lee, Funky Flashman, this bald man who can't admit that he's bald, so he wears a hairpiece, and he's like he's a used car salesman. Basically, it's like that kind of stuff. It's great because like I didn't realize it at the time, that you pick up on like, oh, so Kirby and Stan are not on the best terms. But there's always always gonna be books like that I missed, you always can pick up, and that's why you got to go to comic book shops. You never know what you might find. Like I found since you like Brubaker, it was you remember Prez, the 70s. There was a Brubaker,
the teenage president, right?
Exactly. There was a Prez one shot from the mid 90s, like 95, with Doc Shanner doing the artwork, and it ties into the Sandman universe. It's weird. It's like a Sandman tie-in. It's like what? And it's this weird. It's very indie-like, but it's early Brubaker. I remember picking that up at my comic shop. I was like, what is this? And this is wow, because it's around the time of it's probably around the time I picked up when he was doing the Catwoman book with Darwin Cook.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff, really good stuff. But there's so many good comics out there, and like hopefully more people go to their shops and support them and show them some love, and show your shop some love, and go online and buy some books. But I know it's getting late, so I figured go ahead and wrap up. So thank you once again for for joining me, and thank you for those in the chat. And then I guess until next time, good night and good luck, everyone.